Today, we're here with the Carrie Campbell. So bear with me for just a minute if you don't know who Carrie Campbell is. Carrie is an elite human performance coach with a mission to teach women to break free from limiting narratives and boldly step into their true identity. With a proven track record of transforming lives, Ooh. Carrie has worked with professional athletes to high profile leaders, including collaborations with icons like Pitbull, and she believes no woman should be left behind, making sure her programs are accessible to women everywhere. Her groundbreaking Herdenity Code is at the core of her work, blending her personal journey with her expertise to deliver unparalleled results. A trailblazer in mindset and performance coaching, Carrie has developed programs that enable women to rewrite their stories, overcome adversity, and rise with unshakable strength. Carrie is a relentless advocate for growth, resilience, and living life on your terms. Her passion isn't just professional, it's deeply personal. Carrie's journey of rediscovery, from leaving an unaligned life to becoming a fitness champion and visionary leader, proves the power of living authentically. Whether on stage, in the gym, or in her coaching sessions, Carrie brings a fresh, unapologetic approach to creating real change. Carrie's vision is simple yet profound: to ignite a movement where women redefine, reclaim, rise, and master the identity that will transform their lives. And mostly, she's my friend,
Yay.
my coach, and my mentor, and someone I trust with being the same with my girls. So, for someone who doesn't like to get emotional, I'm already getting a little raw, and
I love
so
it.
you made me have emotions somewhere along the way and let them in. Anyway, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. And I want to quit talking and ask you all of the questions. So hopefully it has some flow to it and isn't just me, woo, because I get sidetracked real easily with asking all of the questions. But first, my favorite thing to find out about people is just I love learning more. And I feel like I know so much about you anyway, because we've known each other for a while, a minute. But I love to hear talk to me about what it was like for you growing up. Where did you come from? I don't want to say what was your childhood like, but really what was growing up like for you? Where do you come from? And how did that kind of shape who you became and grew into?
I love that. First of all, I apologize if there was noise in the background there. I realized my computer was unplugged. So I'm all class
I
over
say,
here. The computer is about to die. Yeah, I love that question. First of all, thank you so much for having me on. Any opportunity for me to be able to dive in and share my message and spread my message of no woman left behind, it's always a yes for me. And for you, it would have been a yes no matter what it was. So I'm honored to be here. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's really interesting because a lot of people find themselves rather surprised when they find out how I grew up and where I grew up. I am a small town girl who grew up in a town of 500 people, which is so funny because my best friend and I took a trip to my hometown, and as we were driving through my hometown, she was like, "Okay," she's like, "You're not a small town girl." She's like, "You're a country girl." Like she goes, "This is not a small town. Like you grew up in the country." And so yes, I grew up in the country in a small town, 500 people. And I lived, a 5 minute walk to my school, everything. It was just a small town living. And I loved it. I was the mix between the tomboy and the princess. I could roll with the guys, but also get dolled up and do all the girly things. I think the thing for me that was the most impactful, powerful, reminiscing memory wise with regards to my childhood is I grew up on the same street as my grandfather. So my grandfather lived 4 houses down from me. And I was very close with my grandfather growing up. And he was such a beacon in my life of like inspiration, motivation, and so many lessons I've taken from him. So, to this day, I can still hear myself bounding up his stairs to go visit him. And it was cozy. I just grew up in a cozy town, and it's a ski town. I love going back and visiting it. And yeah, I'm a country girl through and through. Yes, that's me.
I love it. I love it. Maybe that's why we connect even more. Okay, so now that you open the door about your grandfather, I don't know how much I've heard. If you had to pick one thing that you remember from him teaching you that you have carried with you, what would it be?
Yeah, easy, easy. So I actually just, as you know, I just filmed a TV episode called Legacy Makers, and I actually tell the story inside of Legacy Makers. It's going to be released in early January 2026. The greatest lesson my grandfather ever taught me probably was the minute you wake up on Mondays and hate Mondays, change your life. And it was so profound. My grandfather was a very successful businessman and was the first one in our family to, retire, a millionaire. And when he told me that, I mean, I must have been like 9 or 10 years old when he told me that. But I've always been the type of person that words stick. If you know the five love languages, I'm a words of affirmation girl. The words matter to me. And he just was like, the minute you hate Mondays, you need to change your life. And there were probably 3 times in my life where I realized after 3, 4 months, 5 months, Mondays were treacherous. I hated. I dreaded Mondays. You get that feeling on a Sunday that Monday's coming around the corner, and I use that as an opportunity to change and to grow. And so I've made a lot of decisions in my life off of hating Mondays.
Wow. I've never heard it put that way. I'm a fan too of, man, if you wake up hating, there's something to shift, but that is just the such a stick, like that will stick now for me as
And it
well.
is powerful, right? Yeah,
Yeah, so powerful. Okay, so I feel like it's jumping ahead, but I can't help it.
it's
You
great. Let's
talked
go.
about
Where are we
this
going? Let's go.
legacy makers, so that's going to be exciting. We'll make sure that we have information about that. Like that's huge. I mean, your own TV show episode coming out, but also in your bio really links in with this in your bio talking about the rediscovery of leaving an unaligned life and then talking about probably 3 times when you realized you were hating Mondays. Tell me about those.
Yeah, I think, I mean, gosh, I feel like there's probably more than three. As women, I don't suspect that your audience is primarily women, but mine is. So I'm speaking just specifically to women. Like as women, I believe we lose ourselves multiple times in our life. And well, if we're fortunate, we lose ourselves multiple times. If we're unfortunate, we lose ourselves once and we never find ourselves again. Right. So like the whole key is that you're supposed to lose yourself. You lose yourself, you have to redefine. And then that's why my tagline is redefine, reclaim, and rise. So in order to find something new, you have to lose something. Otherwise, you just stay the same. So I've probably lost myself in multiple different ways many times in my life. The first time really came back to my first marriage. And I'm not even like so much like the marriage, just that time in my life. I was 28 years old. I thought I had it all planned out. I was 20 years old. I graduated from college. I married my high school sweetheart. We had our first kid when we were 23. I bought my first house when I was 21. I had a really solid job. I had my second kid at 25. Like I just had like everything that you're supposed to want. And the relationship was not a healthy relationship. And I woke up at 28 years old and just looked in the mirror and was like, who am I? Like I don't even know it was like I looked in the mirror and it was like a shell of the woman who I used to be. I didn't recognize myself. I was tired. Like if you were to see pictures of me at 28 versus 47, you would think the 28-year-old was older than the 47-year-old because I was lackluster. My eyes were dead. My skin was poor quality from lack of sleep. Like I just didn't have any glow. I had no vibrancy. So, and where I actually remember noticing, speaking of the Monday, kind of pulling in the Monday thing, that's actually where I picked up first that something needed to change. It was actually in my work. I found myself dreading going to work and I loved what I do. Like I loved what I did back then. The work was just a byproduct of everything else in my life. And so at 28, I just realized every single ounce of who I was at the core, the creative soul, a visionary, a leader, all of these, an athlete were gone. And I remember I pulled into my driveway one day and have never felt so stuck in my entire life. I pulled into the driveway and I sat there and just didn't want to get out of the car. and go in and face my life. And that was when I probably knew it was like, okay, time to make the shift. And so that was my first identity shift, where I was like, okay, it's time to, and obviously, I mean, if anybody, but anybody who's ever left a relationship or contemplated leaving a relationship, you spend 2.5 years thinking about it before the moment comes, right? So it wasn't like, oh, I had an epiphany and I left. It was 2.5 years in the making. But that was my first time that I really made that major identity shift and stepped into new.
One of the things I appreciate about you so much is how much you're able to share and how much, and not necessarily all of it, but within your coaching community as well, because I have felt so aligned with so many things along the way. I learn from practicality. I will see myself, even if it's not the same situation, even if it's not the same thing. And I think your ability and your vulnerability and sharing so many things along the way is so powerful for so many women. And when you talk about having a moment sitting in the car, I think so many women have had,
Mhm.
a feeling like that. And how would you, let's just say you're talking to the average woman who maybe hasn't even come into your community yet, because so many of the amazing women I have met, part of not just working with you, but having been within this community, meeting so many women going through living in the unstoppable and her identity style and surrounding yourself is so powerful in that we speak a lot of the same language. But so for someone who maybe hasn't ever encountered that before and is having that feeling, and you talk about redefining and and how the identity code comes from that, someone just stumbling upon here, what can you tell them about that moment? And, you know, is it for real when you talk about 2.5 years? From that moment, because sometimes it's maybe a passing thing and then sometimes it's not. Maybe it's that first awakening to recognizing. And what would you say to them to help them catch whatever they're hearing of themselves in this and being like, what do I need to know in this
Yeah.
moment?
Yeah. I mean, gosh, that's
It's a
such a
lot,
loaded
I
question
know.
because there's probably like 20 answers I can give to that
Right,
question.
right.
But
It's hard
you
to.
know, I'm gonna go here. Give yourself permission to listen to it. Give
Mhm.
yourself permission to hear the voice and not dismiss it so quickly. Because I think that a lot of women, we hear the voice in our head that's telling us something's not right, telling us that we're not happy, telling us that we're not fulfilled, telling us that we're not putting ourselves first, telling us that we're tired, we're feeling unwell, we're not feeling sexy. And we hear those voices, but we dismiss them because we have a job to do. Like the statistic is like something like 73% of women list themselves as their last priority in life, right? So we dismiss what we're feeling so that we can go ahead and take care of the rest of the world. But we need to stop and we need to give ourselves permission to hear the voice. I'm not saying you need to act on the voice, but acknowledging it's there and it may be trying to tell you something is so important because you're going to wake up one day and like you don't get another life to live. You get one life. And I know a lot of people, I started that story from a context of a relationship, but it can be a relationship, it can be a career, it could be movie, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be a relationship. You get one life and you're going to wake up one day and in the end it's just you, babe. So you better make sure that you're giving yourself permission to hear what you're saying to yourself. And sometimes it means you leave, sometimes it means you stay, sometimes it means you get a new job, sometimes it means you don't. But if there's a growth opportunity in there with that voice that's speaking to you.
Ooh, I love it. And what a great job of being able to take that. Because, like you said, there's so many places to go with that. And I just want to make sure if someone's hearing, say that
Permission.
again,
I
permission
think
to listen to it.
permission is so, we don't, as women, we do not give ourselves enough permission. And that's so important, and then the number of women I know who I've coached through this moment of recognizing that they do not recognize themselves anymore. Who was I when I was 16? Who was I when I was 20? Who was I? And watching a woman reinvent themselves and
Mm.
reclaim that part of their being it's, I tell this story all the time because the second time that this happened to me, let me go into it. The second time this happened was with my now husband, Brian. And it was work related. He had just moved in and we were in a conversation about business and careers and what I was doing, what he was doing. And I was so lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I remember feeling so lost in general. Like, I don't know what I like anymore, or don't like anymore. And he was like, "What do you want?" And I just started sobbing because like I didn't know what I wanted. I had no idea what I wanted, which I think a lot of women can relate to because you don't know what you want because your kids want to eat chicken, so you're eating chicken. You don't know what you want because your partner wants to go on vacation and or whatever the case may be. So I remember that moment there was one word that I could narrow in on that was something I wanted, and the word was creative. I'm a creative soul. I mean, to know me means like, I mean, if you're looking at me and you could see me, like just my hair, my tattoo, like I am a creative soul. Most people think I'm in the fashion industry, but so I knew creativity was something I wanted to reclaim. As a child, I used to be a writer, a dancer. I used to paint. I was always creative. So I adopted that word. That was my only vision for 1 year, to be creative. And every single day I woke up and I did something creative, whether it was writing. And interestingly enough, like I tell this story all the time, every single thing in my life that I have created right now for women inside, the Carrie Campbell experience, her identity, and No Woman Left Behind, every single thing has been built off of that one word, creative. One word. And this is a conversation I have with women all the time because they're like, "I don't know what I want. I don't know where I'm going." And I was like, pick one word. And people don't think you can build off of one word, but you can, because one word turned into me writing a blog. How does she do it, mom? That turned into me launching my first program, my first 15 for women, that was in mindset and fitness. That turned into me modeling. That turned into me fitness competing again. Like one word can build an entire country if you let it, right? So think about the power of what it can do for you. Anyways, I'm off on my diatribe now. I don't remember where we started that conversation.
I love it, but one word can create an entire country. That's
Yeah.
pretty powerful. No, really talking about the redefining. And interestingly, right earlier today, I was listening to the first episodes of your podcast. And I'm going to like distract for just a second here. Not really distracting, because your first episode is with Maya, and now I'm getting all the feels again.
Yeah. My daughter, everybody who's
Yeah,
listening.
Maya. Yes, for anyone catching it doesn't know Maya, it's her daughter, and um, this is off track maybe, but not really, like from the whole thing, because I'm guessing she may or may not be discussed as a small piece in the Legacy Makers program or not.
Oh, she's the whole story practically.
Okay, we'll see. So mark your calendars, peeps. So anyway, and you can tell what you would like to or not about Maya, but just whatever piece that you want. But I love that you shared her story and hearing her speak, and me remembering, okay, I wasn't, this just like popped into my head right now, because when we first came across each other was in this other program like years ago that I think we were both in. And so started following, you and Maya on a live video. And I used to do this with my kids all the time, on the stairway of something. I don't remember what you were talking about, but so I've seen her right from
Right.
young and growing up as
Yeah.
well. And then she was doing a program for Unstoppable Girls. And you would love to know that Josie just asked me like 2 days ago. I must have said something about, I feel like I must have said something or mentioned your name or something. And she asked me about the Unstoppable Girls again. I think it's like it's on hold, but in
Coming
that,
back eventually, bigger and better.
that's what I was just gonna say. In the when I was listening to the episode that Maya was talking about, bringing something that's still on her thing, bringing something for young women. So please feel free to share anything about that as we,
Yeah. I
share
mean,
before we
so
step
yeah.
into
So
the next piece.
gosh, this is a whole episode in and of itself. But so there's so many lessons and power in it, and where I can go with it. So my daughter is currently, she's now 21, and in on January 25th of 2000, no, January 29th. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Amazing moment. I don't remember what day it was. That's amazing because I used to have it ingrained in my
Yeah.
head the day. The fact that I can't remember the day just goes to show how healed we all are. I think it was January 25th, 2021. She had been going through some really, really rocky times. And when I say rocky times, it was extreme teenagerism, right? We all know what I'm talking about. When I'm like the extreme girl teenagerism, some itchy bayness was happening. But big time, like like intense behaviors for my sweet little innocent, child. And we were out driving one day, and she was having a particularly challenging day. And she just finally broke down in tears and told me that she had been raped twice. And as a mom, your world stops. As a mom, I had somewhat prepared for that as a reality one day. Interestingly enough, using Imagine Your Outcome, which you know very well, how I would handle a situation like that. And it's so funny looking back. It just feels like a different lifetime now. So she told me she had been raped twice, and that night, I vowed to her that I wasn't going to stop until she was healed. That she was not. Words matter, and I told her. I said, she told me that she had told one of her. I asked her why she hadn't told me, and she said she had told one of her friends, and they didn't believe her, so she felt like she shouldn't tell me. But I vowed to her that night that you're not going to be a 40-year-old woman still dealing with this. That because I know too many women who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s who've never dealt with their past and their trauma. And I went to town, and my world became about healing her and doing what I needed to do to save her life, for a lack of better words, and rewrite the story. And it was a long journey. It was an exhausting journey. And I mean, 2021 to I would say probably 2021 to 2023 was the intensity of all of it. There was day. I mean, I was waking her up in the morning with like breakfast and dragging her out of bed, and I knew that I needed to give her purpose to live, which is why I built the Unstoppable Girls Tribe. So and this is interesting. So she was mentoring young girls in the worst time of her life. And and people might think that's backwards, but I really believe in turning pain into purpose. And so I gave her a reason to live. I gave her a reason to keep going. And then April of that year, she had a particularly challenging day, and she'd come in my room, and she came in my room. I was on coaching calls, and she went back out, and I was like, that was weird. She went in my bathroom and went out of my bathroom. I was like, why'd she do that? And then I knew something was off. So I went to her door. It was just me and her home, and she was crying, and door was locked. And I was like, baby girl, you need to open the door. And anyways, I, stuck my fingernail in the thing and like turned it, because that's how doors aren't hard to unlock nowadays. And I opened the door, and she had sliced her legs with a razor. She was just bleeding everywhere. And I picked her up, carried her to the bathroom, and I thankfully my position in life as a counselor in crisis management was able to see that she didn't have to go to the hospital, because I didn't want to put her into the system. I knew that I was her best bet. And she looked up at me, and I don't wish this on any mom, father, mom, anybody, but she looked up at me. I'll never forget the look in her eyes. Like, it's the only part of the story that still gets me emotional. She just looked at me. She's like, Mama, she goes, I can't. She goes, it hurts too much. And I just was like, we're going to do this, babe. We're going to do this. And so in the trenches with her for 2 years, she sat on so 2021, at the end of that year, she finished the year by becoming the youngest ever professional athlete to become a pro in my fitness federation. She went on a year later to become the youngest ever queen, and we became the youngest ever mother-daughters to hold titles. And by 2024, she sat on my stage at her Identity Live, and I interviewed her on stage, and not knowing the answer, I asked her, I said, baby girl, I was like, do you feel healed? And wasn't expecting this. She said, yeah, I do. And so for me, it was just to prove that it's possible, and I said to her, I said, and for everybody listening right now, you might not think that your healing is possible, but I said to her in those days, I said, baby girl, if I can find one person who's healed from what you've gone through, it means it was possible for her, and that means it's possible for you. And that's all you need, is the belief of one person. And it was a long 3 years, but she is actually, you listen to the podcast, she doesn't even think about it anymore.
Yeah.
It's not, it's rare she even thinks about it. It just goes to show the power of our minds and what we can do. Yeah.
So powerful. And for me, knowing her story and also watching my daughter, Josie was in Unstoppable Girls. I can't even talk more than I know than Ashley made it, but she was always checking and and I know that it was really good for her. And we had some of our friends in it as well. I always feel like there's a place when people had come to me with their teenage girls and like let's get them in this space. So for her, I want her to know that. And also,
She's gonna love hearing that.
yeah, and getting to see her when we were in May, and for Ashley to get to come to an event. Like I don't just trust my girls to just anyone, and to be able to have them learn. Although sometimes Ashley didn't like hearing me talk about wins and intentions and journaling, and but it sinks in, and I am so grateful that I found this journey so long ago when my girls were young,
Yeah.
that it changed the way that I parented. And I'm not like dissing my parents or anything like that. It's just as
No,
we
for
learn
sure.
more about ourselves and,
Totally.
and not doing things on autopilot for my,
Yeah.
from just out of habit and learning so much about myself and
Yeah.
taking care of my own business before, like, not perfect, but so grateful for the way that I've been able to be an influence to them,
Yeah.
hopefully better than I would have been, and for them as well to be in this environment. So, so huge, so appreciative of all of that. So, thank you for that. And
Oh,
for the
my pleasure.
that we're in. And I know that it ripples out from them and
Yeah.
also the community as well. So, no women left behind, her identity. And what's this? A show in 2 weeks. So let's talk about that real quick before we come back about the show in a couple weeks. But then I want to round out and make sure we have time to talk briefly about
Yeah.
the legacy makers and what her identity code is and where it's going and how people can catch up and
Sure.
get
Yeah. 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 Okay.
on.
So you want to do show
That was like
first?
47. Yeah, I want to talk about the show first.
Yeah. So amongst other things, I'm a professional bodybuilder. I've collected 4 championships now, 4 titles, which I often forget because there's most days I wonder why I do this because it's crazy. But no, so I'm competing in a week and a half at this point, almost just under 2 weeks in Mexico to defend my title of Miss Fitness 45 plus in Mexico. And I'm geared up. I'm excited. I did a video about this last week because we have, when I say we, I mean my coach and I, because it's very much a collective journey. We have blown past my last physique. And if anybody knows bodybuilding, it's not for the faint of heart. Like people think you just get up on stage and you flex. And it's like, oh my gosh, so much work to get down to sub 10% body fat is a real feat. And we've already about at 3 weeks out, we had hit 11.6% body fat. My last show, I was 12.1. So we had already blown past it. And then this past weekend, 2 weeks out, my weight and side by side images of the morning of show versus 2 weeks out, I've already beat my last physique by a mile. So why
So
am I telling you that though? I'm telling you that because I want to weave that into a lesson in terms that I did a video about this last week. Being proud of yourself, I firmly believe, is the greatest motivation of all time. Like truly, I always say be your own inspiration, but like I did my body fat scan like 2 Saturdays ago, and I have been riding this high. Like I'm on like some, I don't know, I'm on some crazy low calories right now. Like I am doing 3 hours of workouts a day. My body hurts in places I didn't know it could hurt. Like seriously, like this is the grind, right? But my energy is like all is sky high. And I was trying to assess why. And I realized it's because I am so proud that I reached a new level. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't easy. There's no part of it that was easy. There was 2 weeks where I swear I couldn't even bend my arms because my tendonitis was so bad in my elbows. But like that feeling of pride, and I literally just did a video about this, talking about counting your wins and the value of counting your wins, because like these little wins, like I didn't get to this point like just by snapping my finger. It's the process every single day. And so yeah, I'm excited. I leave a week tomorrow for Mexico. I can't wait to be on. I love being on stage, whether it's speaking, performing, bodybuilding, whatever. I don't care. So I am jazzed and ready to go reclaim my title, hoping no matter what, I won my prep, but I'm planning to go reclaim my title.
Yeah, that's got to get a picture. I got to post a picture with that afterwards and make sure that we have it. And I love the little wins. It's so important. And I have to remind, I can catch when I start to feel off and when you're like, this is too hard. Like all of this
Mhm.
is too hard and
Yep.
overwhelming. And the tools are so powerful in that it's almost laughable when you're like, oh, have you counted a win or two in yesterday? And I will stop what I'm doing, sit down with my stuff if I have slacked off. The power in these tools is just crazy. And once you know, because most of the time people will poo poo it and not start.
Right. For
And it
sure.
takes a little bit and it takes some practice. So, talk to us about what herd identity looks like and what is the difference that it makes for people? Because you have seen, I mean, I've seen it in amongst tons of people and watching it, and what you have seen, and what does this mean for you and to you and Legacy Makers TV and where
So
you're
you mean the
going?
whole picture right now? Like, are we
Yeah,
talking whole
what does
picture?
this mean for women? Talk about the
Yeah,
transformation that you've
because
seen,
the whole
where you're
picture is
going.
huge.
Yeah.
Let me actually talk from the 30,000 foot view. And Amy, I don't think I've actually talked about this live on a podcast yet because we actually I don't know when this podcast's dropping. So it depends on when this is dropped. This might be out. This might be out before I actually announce this publicly. So we'll find out, but that's okay. So we for me, I work as a private like I do private coaching. I could retire off my private coaching if I'm going to be fully transparent. And so, me building the Carrie Campbell experience, and that is the umbrella for everything: her identity live, everything, my retreats, my program, my community, all that stuff. Building that really is about legacy. It's really about impact. It's about, reaching as many women as I possibly can around the world and changing their lives and saving their lives, in whatever way I possibly can, because I believe that when we have a tools, we have process, and we have the skills to help change lives, we are obligated to do so, is what I believe. And so this has been an exciting year. And I don't even know, Amy, if you know any of this. I think you do, but this has been a really exciting year because we've pivoted. Well, no, we have not pivoted. I always say that and I backtrack. We've accelerated really big time, massively. When I say we, I mean me and my entire team have accelerated because we originally were going down the path of, like, let's get her identity membership out there and do like, which we're still doing, all that stuff. But I was like, I want bigger. Like, I want to go bigger, not for me. As I always say, like, I want to be the female Tony Robbins, and people misinterpret that and think, oh, you want all his money or you want his fame. I don't care about his fame. I don't care about his money. I've literally reinvested almost every dime I've made last year into my company. So it's not about money for me. It's if I have Tony Robbins status name, that means that I'm reaching that many more women. Right. So, like, I'm striving to be the female Tony Robbins, or be the female in the personal development space that when people think of pink, they think of Carrie Campbell. If you know, I always wear pink. It's my signature color. But we made a pivot this year. And we are actually, so we filmed Legacy Makers, the episode, but we actually signed a contract for a 6-part docu-series. So we are recording an entire 6-part docu-series. It's called No Woman Left Behind: The Making of a Movement. And the what we've decided to do is we're instead of long gaming the big goal of being the female Tony Robbins as like the end point, we're starting there and we're backtracking it. So somebody asked me, if how do you know what it's going to be like to be like, how do you know when you're going to have reached the female Tony Robbins? I was like, easy. I'm going to be looking at 10,000 women in a stadium. Easy, done. He goes, well, then why? The person I was talking to was like, well, then why don't you make that your goal? Why is that not your goal, instead of sell whatever 100 women into a membership community? And I was like, oh, you know
Yeah.
what, you're onto something there, right? So in April, May, June, July, August, it was in August, we decided to accelerate. And the current goal is that in 18 months, give or take, so at some point in 2027, we are planning on putting 20,000 women in a stadium in Miami for the inaugural Her Identity Rises mindset event of all events for women. We are launching the No Woman Left Behind movement. It is launching out the first week of December. We are going into massive crowdfunding campaign raising to sponsor and fund the docuseries, because the whole target behind No Woman Left Behind, as you know, is to bring elite level coaching to all women globally, regardless of circumstance, regardless of financial status, regardless of socioeconomic anything. So there's inside of that, there's layers of membership turning into AI platforms that we want to put these tools and these strategies that I've been teaching for 20 years into the palms of every woman's hand, with a whole give back reward mechanism as well. So for every ticket sold to Her Identity Rises in 2027, a free app download is going to go to a teenage girl in North America. So now we're actually raising two generations up. So that I have not talked a lot about this on social media, because we're waiting to go to launch and go live. But we are not a company, we are not a business, we are not a membership, we are a movement. No Woman Left Behind. And that is what I will pursue until the day that I leave this earth. There you have
I
it.
feel like I was I feel like there's nothing to say after. I mean, there is. There's a million things to say.
I'm
There's,
clearly very passionate about this topic.
and I'm like, okay, how do I get tickets for the girls and I? Front area, VIP. They're old enough. They're all going. We can't have any school issues with it. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I
Yep.
a movement, and it 100% is. And one thing, it's weird. I just had another flashback. Through all of the years, I remember, I don't know, however many years ago, and I don't even know what part of stuff that I think it was something with you and Brian. So I don't know if it was apprentice stuff. I really don't know where it was, or if it was something before that.
Keep track anymore.
Um, what's that?
You can keep track anymore,
Oh,
honestly,
yeah,
right? It's been
right.
so many years.
Yeah. And it was, the question was, why do this, or why, and I just, something about the program or the mindset work or something. And all I could come up with is because everybody should get to feel like this.
Mm, I just got goosebumps.
And I was like,
Yes.
I can't put it into any, and I just did it again. I can't put it into any other words, but you can't, I don't even know how to explain it, but everybody should get to feel like this. And that doesn't mean every day is good. It means you know what to do with it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm so like, for me, I mean, when I decided to go all in on this, I mean, I went all in a big way. I hired a team of 10 people. I have like invested, like I said, and this is bootstrapped from my own funds. And it was just it was an easy answer for me when someone asked me, like, are you doing it? And I was like, well, there's nothing else. This is it for the rest of my life. I have nothing else. For me, there's a moment when you arrive at your destination, and your destiny collides with your reality. And that's where I feel like I'm living. And all of these, I mean, I have I'm good friends with Pitbull, and that's been a relationship that I've been building for 8 years. And I was telling him all about this when I saw him in August, and he's like, let's go, let's do it. Like, what, like, and there's got to be a certain level of delusional, when you want to do something this big. But for me, it's so funny, because it feels so much easier to put 20,000 women in a stadium than it does to get 20 women into my membership community. But it's because my vision is bigger than
the,
the ones and twos. My vision is world change. And it has, going back to where we started this podcast was with my grandfather. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, I was in my grandfather's garden with him. And he said to me, he's like, Carrie, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I looked up at him and I was like, I want to change the world, Grandpa. And he tapped me on the head and did that little thing, like, there, little girl, you go do that, like, as if to say, like, okay, right. But that moment was so vivid to me. All I've ever wanted to do was change the world. And I'm very blessed and very fortunate at this point in my life, after 25 years of practicing and being in the trenches as a coach and counselor, that I have honed in my expertise, that I get to be an authority in the space and bring this to women around the world. So buckle up, ladies. We're going for a ride.
Amen. And on behalf of myself, my girls, and every woman who is going to be impacted by this, see if I can get this out. Thank you for building the vision, and thank you for stepping into it, and thank you for teaching us how to do it.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Forever
Thank you.
grateful. Whoo.